Okay, so it's Mike with Lake and Lodge Garage again. Thanks for watching. So the last thing I got to do, or the last few things I got to do on this chassis before I can push it aside and start working on the motor, and then subsequently the body, is I got to finish the hard lines. I want to do the brake lines from that bulkhead right there, back through to both calipers, the rear brake lines. Probably not going to do the front brake lines until I get the cab on it, so I can see where they've got to come up through and where everything's got to ride. I've also got to adjust. I got some negative camber going on that wheel. I didn't adjust anything yet. I just got to stand that up. There's just one little offset bushing adjustment in there. The other thing I'm doing is this. This is a transmission cooler, oil cooler. You can use them for a power steering fluid, but rather than run the fluid through the radiator, you run it through this. Now you can use this in series with the radiator if you want. You can use it solo. I've seen people using them both ways. I like the way that mounts up in there, and it should get plenty of airflow. If it doesn't, I can 3D print some ductwork to kind of scoop it up onto it. Pretty easy. But it's a nice tidy setup, and basically I'm going to run hard lines from here to these two bulkheads, and then soft lines up to the transmission, which will be about right here. So very clean, tidy, nice setup. So what I've got to do now is I've got to run the hard lines from these two bulkheads down to the fittings. Again, it's going to be 3/8 inch, and I'm just going to go ahead and bend those up now and get them on. Okay, that was not as easy as I had hoped. This was a kind of a tight space to go from here to here. I should have moved that cooler back a bit, but I had pre-drilled and tapped those holes or put riv nuts in them as I was assembling the chassis, so I'm kind of locked in. But anyway, it's good. I think I've got it. I'm going to pressure test this to make sure I don't have any leaks. It's just tricky tightening all this up. If I need to, I'll just pull this all right back out and pressure test everything, get it all tightened up and then put it back in. Shouldn't be that big a deal. But I'm going to pressure test it first, see if I need to do that, and I have a setup for doing that. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the brake lines next. So, okay, so the hard line for the rear brake, I've run that up to a bulkhead up there. It's a 4AN bulkhead. I can run that right up to my master cylinder. I've got 1/4 inch line coming back to my first T. I'm going to run 3/16 line to that wheel cylinder, and then of course I'm going to come straight in with this wheel cylinder with an adapter that goes from 3AN to 7/16 24. So I can screw inverted nipple, so I can screw it directly into this block through that tab, and that'll hold everything nice and neat. So the next step is I've got to get from that side over to the T, and then put on retainers so it's not rattling around back here. So I'll show you what I'm into there. I always like to start from that and work my way back. Start from the hardest side and go to the easiest side, just because some of these bends are going to be a little weird. You got to make a loop down there to pick that up. So that's where I'll get started. All right, so here's how we're going to get started with this. I've got two types of benders here. The traditional type, which is this one. Problem with this one, it only goes to 90 degrees or a little over. And I want to do a 180 degree loop over there. So I also have this one, which will do 180, but it's only set up for 1/4 inch tubing. So I'm going to try the 3/16 on it anyway, just to see what happens. If it doesn't work, then I'll do something different. Now, one of the things that always annoys me is, you get this in a coil and you straighten it out is kind of a mission to get it to look good. So I bought this thing. It works really nice. And you literally just roll this over through the bends and give it a few passes, and it straightens that line right out. It really makes a nice looking tube at that point. So I'm gonna start by trying to put a 180-degree bend on this end. We'll see how that looks with a 1/4-inch bender. What could go wrong? Hopefully it doesn't kink. That would be the concern, is what if it kinks, right? So you lay this in like this. Bring this around. I'm just leaving myself enough room to put the flare on it. I'm going to cut it off after. Oh yeah, it bends nice. Hopefully there's no kink or flat spots. Oh, there it goes. Just kinked. All right, that's not going to work. It's not holding it tight enough. All right, so we'll go back to the other one. We cut that off. Failed experiment. But hey, now we know. This is copper nickel tubing, not your standard copper tubing. That's not good. This stuff is very strong and it'll last a good long time. And I have this little deburring tool for cleaning up the ends. All right, so let's go back to the other bender now. Do the 3/16 on this one, which is right there. And start my bend. Okay, so I'm going to put a, that might be too, first bend doesn't matter with the angle, obviously. I want to make sure that I can get my die on that. Before I get too far along. Oh yeah, plenty of room. And we'll take you through the flaring tool in a minute. Okay, so there's my first bend, nice and neat, no kinks. Now I'm going to come back, do another bend. Get that a little closer to where it's supposed to be. Stuff's falling everywhere, of course. All right. So now I'm just going to put a little 45 on it. Ish. Make sure that's in the same plane. There. So now I can take that tube, run it back, and do another bend about right here, and get it to start heading the way I want it to. I like to mark my bends first. That's kind of going to be the limit of the bend. So now I got to go this way, put it back in the die. And give it 45 the other way. Now, you can see what I have. I just have a loop so that I can get into this fitting comfortably and then start bending my way backwards. All right, probably gonna flare this next just so I can start putting the fitting in. I think I already put the fitting in this. I did. No, I didn't. And that is, I believe, a 3/8 24. And I believe a regular length one would be fine. Okay, so that's good. Always remember to put your fitting on first. If you forget, you're going to hate life. You're going to be cutting that flare off. Now, this is my flare tool. It does inverted flares, regular flares. You can get dies for AN flares, all of that. So the way it works is you just literally put the die in like so. Hang on. Got to open up the throat a little bit. Slip your die in with the pocket facing the tool. What the heck? Oh yeah. Okay, now I will put this over here just so I can maneuver it. And the idea with this tool, it has different dies for different size pieces that you're doing. You turn this out, flip this down. So there's a little trap door here. You slide your tube through until you hit the length stop, then tighten up your grip. Tighten the vise on it. Make sure it's in there good and flat. If it's not flat, it's not going to work. All right. And then you use this vise to clamp the tube in. Now, you literally just screw this in until you're close. I'm going to flip this down so you can see what's going on. Probably going to pay for this maneuver, but... All right, so you just screw this in until you're close. Close the valve. And you give this a couple pumps. Oh, crap. Well, I'm glad I checked because it looks like my fitting fell off. It's right there. Always check to make sure your fitting's on before you crimp it. You're just not gonna have a good day. All right, let's try this again. All right, check my depth. Depth looks good. Tighten up my lock. Screw in the part. This goes a little quicker when I'm not being an idiot. Okay, so now, next thing is you just give it a couple pumps. And that pushes in the flare, and you pump it until it bottoms out. Now, then you release the pressure, screw the tool back out. So that's stage one. That kind of puts the bell on it. This can do bubble flares, it can do all kinds of good stuff. Now you just put the cone on, which is this piece, and that's going to finish up the flare. Now, what I did learn with this tool is you do not want to overdo it on the cone. Get her in there until you feel moderate pressure and then stop. If you can over tighten this, and then the flare won't tighten up in the flare fitting. I've had that happen to me multiple times. And what I learned was just don't come on to this part quite so much, and it works fine. There you go. Your perfect inverted flare. Hopefully you can see that okay. It does a nice job. I like it. All right, now, it is semi-portable, so you can kind of use it where you need it type thing, which I like. All right, let me just start this in, snug it up, but not enough so I can't turn it. All right, now, got to put a slight bend down right here. And I lost my pen. Nice work, there it is. Okay. I always put it, when I put a mark on it, I put a mark where I want the end of my bend, but I also put a mark that is the top of the bend. Can I bend that while it's right on there? Probably. Let's see, do I have to take this one off or not? What do you think? Do I take it off or leave it on? We'll see. There. Should get me close. Move this out of the way. Okay. Loosen that up a bit, and then I can get this over where I need it. Yeah, so that's where I want it, right there. Now, I am going to put a bend starting here. Hook it in that way. I could probably cut about, 20 feet off this line here and not fight this the whole way. But what fun would that be? All right, so that's where I'm starting my bend. It's gonna go that way. going to go to 45 degrees. And there it is. Put a little bend in the middle of it there, which I didn't want. But there we go. Now you can kind of see how this is starting. And before I put this on permanently, I'll just take some brake clean and get all this magic marker off it. Magic marker. Get all the Sharpie marks off it. Put that on 0. Line up my tool with this plane and give it another 45. All right, there we go. Now you can kind of see how I'm working this through. And then I'm going to put some retainers in strategic locations. Oh man, I screwed up. But not terminally. I didn't straighten out enough line here before I got going with this. So I'm going to come back through here, down to there, down to there. I'm just going to cut off the excess loop here so I can straighten the rest of this. There we go. This is so much easier to do this before there's a body on it. I always like to do my brake lines and my exhaust and everything while it's sitting here in a bare chassis. And when I set the body on it, it's more fun. Okay. All right. Now that probably won't be my last cut on that. Certainly won't, because I haven't fit it to the proper length yet, but I am going to stick my tubing straightener back on here and work out these kinks. Look how nice that works, man. I hate having just weird wonky kinks in my hose, my brake lines. So this gives me a nice straight tube to work with now. Okay. Get that back over into there, mark my starting point, and continue on. Put my mark on 0, in line with my plane, go to 45, boom, done. Does it fit? Oh, it's beautiful, it's beautiful. Oops, we'll get that later. Now, if I'm doing my job right, should again be able to just slip this on here, set my mark at 0, make sure my plane is right, bend to 45. Boom. Done. Does it fit? Well, we will see. Oh yeah, like a glove. Now, think I'm about 45 degrees down from this point. And then where this is the top. I've got all the way to the end of these before and then bent it the wrong way or something stupid like that. Okay, open up the throat, set this back in, my mark on 0. Right there. Very good. Should about do it. Let's see. I think I need a little more angle. Maybe you need a little tweak. You can always just do it by hand. Should about do it right there. And we'll cut that off, crimp that end. Okay, beautiful. Now this end down here is a 7/16 24 because that's the T block. I came into that T with 1/4 inch and I'm coming out with 2 3/16. 7/16 24 is the most useful flare that you can do both 3/16 and 1/4 inch in. If it makes any sense. And I got one more fitting coming to tie this line into that. That should be here today. So I have to, take a ride over to my neighborhood-friendly post office. All right, I'm gonna pull this line out now to put this last flare in, just because I'm nervous about bending it. Getting a weird kink here on the end. That's never good. All right. Yeah, plane-wise, that's pretty good. Not bad at all. So yeah, let's see how this looks. All right. Put this back over there. Okay, first things first. Just always like to deburr this a little bit. You don't really need to, but I like to. It's nice. Makes it nice. Okay, here's my fitting, my nut. Then I put in my get the right tool in there. A little too much. That looks good. Tighten that off. Screw this in. I ordered a couple fittings so that I can pressure test my the transmission lines. Okay, again, doing this bit. Oops. That's good enough. Then back that off. Take this tool out, put the cone tool in. Close it up again and give it a few pumps. Again, don't overpower it. You squish it too much, it just looks like it gets too flat, and there's not enough room in the design of the flare nut to allow it to seal properly. I ran into a couple of those on the Firebird, and I had to take them apart and redo them, and that's where ultimately what it came down to. Come on, get out of there. Get out of there. Okay, let's see if this all fits now. Another good flare. Looks nice. Now I'm gonna put my nut back in here. Spin that around. I'll let that float a little bit to start. Then I will just work this down into here. Oh yeah, right on the money. Right on the money. Come on. Okay. So now I just got to tighten that up a little bit. Get that lined up right. Yeah. All right. And there it is. Perfect. Now I'm going to dig out some retainers and just get that retained. I'll bring you back when I'm ready to show you. All right, so these are the style retainers I'm going to use. These are the cheapest known retainer known to man, but they work good, and it'll keep your line from rattling and hitting anything or getting hitting any wear, getting any wear through. I just put a prick punch in it. That back out of the way. Then I'll drill that hole and I'll actually tap it for 1/4 20, and then I can just run a 1/4 20 screw in it and I'm done. Done. It's marvelous. All right, that's that tap. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a quick hole in it. I like to start with an 1/8 inch bit. I use these short little, they call them centering bits. They last a long time and you get them in bulk. Okay, now I'll put on my drill appropriate for the 1/4 20 tap. I don't remember exactly what size it is. Then we'll just tap that out. Break the chip. When you're tapping, you go forward until you start to feel it bind up a little bit, and then you just back off, and then you'll feel it right about here snap the chip off. It's called breaking the chip. And will break a lot less taps that way if you know that little trick. There we go. Now, also using a little tap magic on that tap is a good idea, a little lubricant. But hey, you know, to keep moving. Get the chip out of there. And lastly, we'll just screw it down. Put this back in the right spot. 1/4 screw with a lock washer. I don't want to be shedding parts rolling down the road. All right, now just find the hole and thread her in. And there you go. I'll repeat that 3 more times. All right, there we have it. So that's run all the way back through. Got a retainer, go through my T-block, up around, go around the back, and loop down into the other caliper. So that is good. That is it. The only thing I'm waiting on is that one fitting here so I can tie this piece to that, and I'll show you that when it gets here. Yeah, pretty happy with all that right now. Next thing I'm going to do before I put a bow on this is I'm going to throw the emergency brake cables back in on these calipers, just so I do not forget. I got to keep that kind of front of mind. I've got to rig up a system to get those 2 emergency brake cables back up to some sort of actuator. The one that was in the original pickup cab, I think, is totally inappropriate. It will not work with a cable affair, but I don't know that yet. So, but I do know I've got these cables. So I'm going to get these there and hang in there so that they're literally front of mind anytime I'm looking under this thing. So I'll bring you back when I'm ready to show you that. So I threw the emergency brake cables in, and they come down and they have these little stabilizers on them. Then there's an equalizer cable that goes through, and you hook this cable here to that, and then this cable hooks over here. Same story. So I think what we gotta do is gotta anchor these guys somewhere, and this has to float somewhat because that has to move in order to actuate both emergency or parking brakes. I guess they don't call them emergency brakes anymore. So I've got to figure that out. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do there yet, but I will figure it out. But I'll probably do a little research on that and save it for the next one. So if you get any ideas, put it in the comments. But my thought is take these, modify them, anchor them up to the frame somehow. I just got to make sure they're out of the way of the exhaust and everything else. And oh, geez, everything's always something. Okay, so yeah, I'm probably going to wrap this video right here and get it ready to post. Next step is to start start doing the eval on the old LS over there and make sure it's worth putting some time into. If it's not, we'll regroup, but I'll take you through the whole process and what I do to make sure that the motor is okay-ish, okay enough to put in as a swap. So, okay, that's it. I'm gonna wrap this right here. Feeling pretty good. All the brake lines are done. Chassis is really coming together. Like I said, I've got to work out that e-brake situation. I've just got a cable tied up in there right now, but it, you know, it shouldn't be that hard. I've just got to kind of figure out where everything goes. I might design something that I can attach right here and weld onto this bracket since I got the paint all screwed up anyway. I might be able to make something right there that allows this to float and do everything else I need to do. So anyway, that's my plan right now. I will bring you back to it when I get to a good point.